In this lesson, we'll create containment regions that we can use to control the toolpath when we're programming this part. To start, I'm going to clear the colors that I put on this part, and I'm going to turn off the surfaces level for now, so we're back to where we were with our original part. I'm going to start by creating another level. In this case, it'll be a level 11, and I'm going to call this silhouette. And we're going to use this at a later time when we create a silhouette boundary. I'll also create level 10, and I'm simply going to call this wireframe. And wireframe is where we're going to start, and I want this to be set to 2D, and I'm going to create simple wireframe geometry around this part. I also want my Z value to be set back to 0, so instead of clicking on Z and then clicking on the actual point I want to set it to, I could just click on Z and type in 0, and that will bring it right back to the origin. Let's go back to the top view, zoom out so we can fit it to the screen. So construction plane is set to 2D, and the Z is set to 0. Now I'm going to create a bounding box by going to the wireframe, bounding box. We saw this before. I'm going to select the geometry, hit end selection, and since this is set to 2D, it's simply going to give me a rectangle. Let's click OK here, and then to make this containment region a little easier, we're going to use offset chains. I'm going to select this chain, and by default, it remembers the previous setting, which was partial. Let's hit unselect, and then go to chains, and select the entire chain. And since I chose offset, it wants to know whether I'm going to offset to the left or to the right. I'm going to go to the left. I'm going to type in the value that I want to offset. In this case, it's 1/2 inch. And I'm not going to modify the corners. If I did that, it would actually add fillets to this. I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to move it because I don't want the existing geometry. I just want the new moved geometry. And when we click OK, those 4 lines get put onto level 10, which is wireframe. So that's a good start. So now let's go to level 11. So now we'll use the silhouette tool, and that'll put the geometry on our silhouette level. So at this the active level, let's click on silhouette boundary. And just like the bounding box, it asks for the geometry. And I'm going to hit end selection. And we have some tolerancing options here, because what it does is it looks at the geometry here and best fits wireframe geometry to it. So if this was not an arc, it would try to fit arcs and lines to best fit this geometry. I have down arc fit here, so it's going to create arcs when possible, and I'll accept all the default tolerancing values. So let's hide level 10, and let's just look at the silhouette result. To make it easier, we'll hide the chain guard geometry, and as you can see, this is the result we get. And typically, I hold down the Shift key, and I just like to see that when I select the outside shape, it grabs everything. Same for the inside shapes. But as you can see, this circle is not a perfect circle. Or it might be, but it's not made from a perfect circular piece of geometry. But if I hold down the Shift key and select it, they are closed contours. So one interesting option you can do here is you can use the function called close arc, which is on the wireframe tab under modify. And if I click close arc, it says select the arc to convert to a full circle. And if I click on it and hit end selection, it automatically puts a full arc there. We'll do the same thing down here, and it creates a full arc. So now I just want to make sure that I delete all the geometry that's not part of that full arc. So down here, I just hover over until I find just the highlighted piece. Hit delete. Same thing right there. Hit delete, and we should be good. So turning on the chain guard again, you'll notice that it created geometry along this outside shape, but we may not need that. So we could clean this up. So let's hide the chain guard again. I'm going to use the trim entities. And I'm going to say trim auto. And I'm going to trim this piece of geometry to this piece of geometry. And see what it does is it actually extends it out. Do the same thing here to trim this to that. And it gets rid of this. So now I can simply click on this geometry here and hit delete on my keyboard, and I trimmed that. And just to double check, hold down the Shift key, and we select everything, and everything gets selected. Let's update this file by turning on the chain guard, making that the active level, turning off the silhouette level. I'll go to isometric, and I can save this file down and move on with the next lesson.